instead of following standard safety procedures, Field Marshal Nedelin ordered the rockets repaired without draining the fuel tanks. A calculated gamble to save time. Engineers were still working on the rocket the next day as the countdown began. But 30 minutes before the scheduled 9 p.m. launch, a spurious communication signal prematurely activated the rocket's second stage.
The engine ignites, the fire goes into the first stage, which is packed with toxic propellants. The first stage explodes. Immediately there's a gigantic fireball. Hundreds of tons of toxic propellant have just exploded.
A camera set up to record the launch captured the horrific scene. As hundreds fled for their lives, those standing close to the rocket, including Field Marshal Nedelin, were instantly incinerated. At its apex, the temperature of the fire reached 3,000 degrees, melting everything in its path. Over 150 people died, including many top Soviet scientists and engineers. But for decades afterwards, the story of the disaster remained hidden from the public.
It wasn't even acceptable to admit that this happened. It was as you would be violating state secrecies. So people who were mourning for their relatives couldn't officially, openly mourn.
6 months after the R-16 disaster, cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first man to successfully orbit the Earth. To all outward appearances, the Soviets were capturing the high ground of space.
Yuri Gagarin goes up into space in April 1961. He's the first human being in space, which is, of course, a great accomplishment. But, it wasn't balanced by the tragedy of 6 months prior.
Responding to Gagarin's success, President Kennedy issued a challenge of his own, setting into motion a space race that would result in one of America's greatest technological triumphs.
This nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.